2019 was an incredible year for anime, an unknowing preparation for what 2020 would bring. This was the year that series like Demon Slayer, the Fruits Basket remake, Vinland Saga, and many more aired for the first time. But one show stood out as a star breakout, debuting at the tippy top of the year, the promised Neverland. Adapted from one of the best-selling manga of all time, Season 1 stands as a masterpiece in the anime industry. However, the season to follow up was unpredictably and disparagingly a disaster. The big question is what caused this, and that's what I aim to find out in this video. Let's talk about this anime, its manga, and everything it could have been. My name is Hanlin, and this is the worst media letdown that I have ever been a part of. The show follows the Gracefield House, which is an orphanage home to dozens of kids until they're either adopted or turn 12. However, unbeknownst to the kids living their fulfilled childhoods in this sanctuary, a sinister secret looms in the shadows. Which you could have guessed as soon as I said orphanage, but essentially these kids are being cultivated as a food source for a demon patriarchy, you know, classic stuff, specifically for their brains. The children are put through rigorous daily testing, growing their knowledge as much as possible, the point of which you find out is to make their brains more delicious, because more smart equal more good, more tasty. Kids who underscore like Connie here are sent away early and harvested as lower quality goods. The children who excel are kept as long as possible up until, you know, their brains are peak quality at the age of 12, which always seemed weird to me because it's like, have you ever met a 12-year-old? Gracefield holds 3 exceptional kids close to the peak age. First, there's Norman, who lacks in physical ability but is at the top of the intelligence statistics. The most main of the main characters, Emma, has the best physical prowess while still obtaining top scores on all her tests. And then there's Ray, who's kind of the middle ground between these two and is terrifying to Gerard Way. The first episode reveals the twist to us at the same time as Emma and Norman. From here, we follow their thorough plans for escape and the fight for survival that coincides. The first season is masterful. You could very well read the manga on its own, but there's something special about the viewing experience of the animated first arc. The main thing I was impressed by was the camera work. It's presented like a horror movie would be filmed. There's tracking scenes, dynamic movements, and angled shots that scream intensity. This, combined with new twists and turns each episode as the kids adapt to fit their new set of circumstances, makes it hard to look away from the screen. The main villain, Isabella, is one of my favorites I've ever encountered in media. She grew up in the facility as livestock, discovered the truth for herself, and was given the chance to be a mom. She was one of the few humans who were allowed to grow old and then act as the caregiver to future children. But her will was shattered at a young age. Her way of surviving was dedicating herself to the farm and making the kids she took care of as happy as she could. She claims to love the children, but does torturous things like breaking Emma's leg and emotionally abusing Ray. She spends the first season trying to break her opponents in the same way she was broken, and she justified this by accepting that this fate was the most favorable for the kids. It's not until the very end of the last episode that we see the real Isabella. She's literally watching her life for the last 12 years sprint out of her grasps. Once again, she gives up, realizing that her kids were incredible enough to do what she never thought of as a valuable option. All she can do now is wish them good luck. For these reasons and more, Season 1 was an incredible success. It closely followed the manga up until chapter 37, while Season 2 decided to change things. With such a well-done first arc, how was the bag so severely fumbled moving forward? My first theory was that with a concept like The Promised Neverland, the problem in continuing the story was the loss of the thrill of the escape, which is what made it so intense in the first place. Once that's over, the writing kind of enters a tricky spot. The story was bound to change drastically. Was Season 2 so bad because of this? To find out, I had to do something I never normally do. Read the manga. Not that I have anything against manga, I don't ever, do it, I don't know. But this is for content and my own emotional satisfaction, so let's dive in. Starting where the anime left off, the beginning of the manga is similar in environment to Season 2. They emerge into a strange forest that's not at all how we'd expect Earth to look. It's so strange that the kids start to theorize the chances that they are actually on a completely different planet. Immediately after this, the first volume is drastically different from the anime. To catch you up quickly, in Season 1, the kids are given a pen that's connected to this mysterious man, William Minerva. He left clues about the truth of the heart harvest in Gracefield's library through cryptic Morse code, trying to help the children discover reality for themselves. When the pen is unlocked, the kids find a message from Minerva that tells them a location with a promise for safety. So, heading to that location becomes the current goal. On their way, the kids are intercepted by demons trying to bring them back to Gracefield. Here, their lives are saved by two religion-bound demons, Sanju and Mijuka. This is the first sign to the readers and the kids that what we thought of the demon world is not the complete truth. Not all demons are bad, and later we find out that not all humans are good either. With the religious demons' help, Emma and the gang find their way to B0632. In the animated season 2, this is a shelter made by William Minerva to keep the kids safe. Upon entering, they find absolutely nothing besides exactly that, a place to stay. As I got to this point in the manga, I expected it to be the exact same, so imagine my surprise when they show up to this shelter and instead of it being empty completely, there's an entire grown-ass man that's been living there for 13 years that was just wiped away from the season. I knew that the anime cut out a whole arc, but I had no idea the sheer amount of characters and events that were left out. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you here, what I heard about the arc that they erased named Goldie Pond is that it's the best arc in the whole story. This led me to believe that it was pretty good, of course, but like, damn, Goldie Pond deserves far more praise than just pretty good. A new message in the pen was unlocked once they successfully arrived at the shelter. A new location with the promise of more than just a safe place. Emma makes the decision that her, Ray, and the man they found in the shelter would go to the new location. Oh, and I should probably tell you who the fuck this guy is. He remains nameless for almost the whole arc. He is a cranky, threatening man who's the only survivor of the previous group of escapees from a different human farm. The inclusion of this one character expands the lore of the Promised Neverland tenfold. There are other farms, including mass production farms, which when I saw that panel just kind of, ugh, you know? The kids blackmail the man to leave the shelter with Emma and Ray to guide them to this new location. But many questions remain, like what happened to all of the other escapees and why was their room scratched with pleads for help? It turns out that the location they're searching for has been taken over by poachers, and Emma alone gets taken into this hellscape. Goldie Pond is the hunting ground of a group of demons who miss the thrill of hunting down humans in the wild. They bring in children every month, replenishing their stock, and pick them off in a chase that they call a game. Emma's experience here is a thrilling turn in the manga. Just like the house, she needs to escape, but this environment is nothing but deadly. What takes place here is a blatant and pure fight for survival, all while the mysteries of who William Minerva is begin to unfold. Had this arc taken up season 2, it could have been an incredible story with a fantastic showdown at the end of the arc to cap it all off. Not to mention the amount of lore that is learned in this arc. It makes perfect sense why season 2 was so messy with having to shove all this information into a new place or just completely cut it out. Was this a waste of an adaptation's potential, or should it have remained as just a manga in the first place? From what I've seen online, there's two opinions. The manga was horrible, so the second season was doomed from the start, or the production fucked up and ruined a great story. And I disagree with both of these. Maybe I enjoyed the manga because I haven't read a lot of manga to compare it to, or because I already loved the characters and story from the first season. However, I think the manga has a lot of value in it. It feels exciting, and it never frustrated me with the plot progression. It's entertaining from start to finish. My main critique would be it not completely agreeing on what it's trying to say, if it's trying to say anything. There is a lot of messages one could take from this story. With exception of the ending, the manga just dodges around things. It doesn't seem to want to be a critique of the mass production of meat, nor does it entirely want to condemn hierarchy. Instead, it shoved in some messaging at the end about human society. I believe simply that the author had a cool idea for a story, and that's what The Promised Neverland is. That cool idea just so happened to allow for a lot of different directions with the messaging, but the author didn't want to commit to any of them. Otherwise, it's entertaining, and from what I've read, that seems to have always been the goal. In the end, I believe that the manga just wasn't meant to have an anime. The story's pacing is kind of all over the place, and the conflicts that occur are much easier to depict via a few panels rather than having to fluidly animate the movements, especially for some of these giant-ass demons. The first season was adapted beautifully, but that was due to the singular setting, constant characters, and it being well-paced from beginning to the end. The rest of the manga doesn't have any of these moving forward. forward. For this, I can't justify blaming the production either. We know Cloverworks is a good studio. When comparing the second season and the manga, they cut out anything complicated. All of the Goldie Pond arc that they cut out had huge demons in it and a large cast of new characters. By the end of the arc, the group of kids had grown to over 60. That's a lot of animation to do. It's true that money doesn't magically appear when you've got a good adaptation. The source material would need a large budget to be produced well, and they just didn't have that budget. I don't agree with how they went about the issue. Personally, I think they should have just dropped the second season entirely, but I'm sure they had their reasons, you know? In the end, whether you loved the first season or you're a longtime fan of the manga, we have to make peace with the situation and do our best to move on. I'm so happy to have finally made this video. Let me know what your thoughts are on the series and whether you agree with my conclusions or not. If you enjoyed, remember to subscribe, but thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a great day, and with that, that's all I wanted to say.